Hello, friends, and welcome back to 20 Questions With. For those of you who are new here, this is my fun way of introducing you to other costumers and costubers by asking them 20 silly questions. Today, we are talking to Gilbert of Dolthalion. I can just barely say that word, Dolthalion. Hi, Gilbert. How's it going?
Hey, I'm good. I mean,
Welcome
it's
to
a
the
lot
channel.
earlier for me than it is for you. So,
Yes, Gilbert is currently in Germany, right?
yeah.
Although he's British, so don't
Yeah.
be fooled by the whole Germany thing. Is your
I am
partner
one of
German?
those. Yes, my partner's German. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just a nasty immigrant.
Oh, okay. That's fantastic. I hope you clutch that EU passport as tightly as you can.
I don't get one. I've got a permanent allowance to be within the EU because my partner's German and I've lived here for pre-Brexit, but I don't actually get a passport until I've been here for 5 years and I applied to be a German citizen.
Are you going to do that?
Well, I'll probably have to give up my British citizenship. So,
Really?
yeah, before when the UK was part of the EU, you didn't.
Uh-huh.
But because the UK is no longer part of the EU,
But you can be an UK and a US citizen.
yeah, it's whether you can have a dual citizenship depends on each country.
Oh, like each country pairing.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it very much depends on, and that's why I don't know because at the moment, obviously, there isn't a rule in place because everything's so fresh.
Right.
So
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your channel, etc.?
yeah, so I mean, as we already covered, I live in Germany, come from the UK. So I come from a cosplaying background. I started cosplaying in 2007, so coming up to 15 years now. And I was always more interested in historical stuff within that rather than just cosplay, if that kind of makes sense.
Sure.
So as I started to grow as a cosplayer, I found myself drifting towards things like Vinland Saga, which is set during it's set in Iceland during the Viking era. Things
Mm.
like Italia, which is all about the nations through all the periods of history. And I've also always been interested in reenactment and things like that. I just never had a chance to do it because I lived in the middle of nowhere in the UK and can't drive. So it's my channel is kind of has started to show my swap over from cosplaying into historical, I would say historical cosplaying, because at this stage, what I'm doing is making historical costumes based on a character. So, for example, Aziraphale, I'm doing at the moment. I'm doing Aziraphale's Tudor outfit in historical adequacy because that's me. And yeah, it's just showing how I'm changing from one thing to another and going through a lot of that in between cosplay and historical costuming.
Yeah. I mean, I do sort of the same thing. So
Yeah, you do.
yeah. It's actually like kind of surprising how many people, when they stop and think about it, that's what they're doing. Because even a lot of historical people are like, I'm just gonna roll a little bit. I need inspiration, so I'm gonna take it from this thing that has
Yeah.
nothing to do with history.
And I
So
mean, why not? Like
yeah,
we can be historical accurate, but even if you're being historical accurate, you can still take inspiration from things that are in our modern lives. Like you don't have to completely remove who you are from the picture to be historically accurate.
yeah, absolutely. Are you ready to play 20 questions?
Yes, let's do it.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a writer, actually.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be Robin Hood. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be Robin Hood mainly, let's be honest.
Sure.
I was actually, because we moved recently, I was going through photos from school and I found the pictures from the end of primary school where we had an assembly where we all had to say what we were going to be in 10 years. And yeah, I decided I was going to be a writer. So I came in with my cat plush in basically pajamas and was like, yep, I'm going to be a writer.
They're in their pajamas all the time.
Yeah.
Turns out totally accurate.
Yeah, exactly. I was more accurate than I realized.
Yeah, absolutely. Who is the most interesting person that you have ever met?
Ooh. See, that's a tricky one because I'm autistic, so I don't actually go out and meet people an awful lot. I would have to say that the most interesting person that I haven't met is Terry Pratchett, because I
Sure.
happened to go to the first Discworld con that he didn't go to.
Oh.
I went to the one before he died because he was just at that state where he couldn't go anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it does mean that I've met people like Bernard Pearson, who runs the Discworld Emporium, who was a close friend of Terry's and he does all of the merchandise for Discworld, stuff like that, or started it.
Does
And
he read the audiobooks?
No, that is someone else whose name I've temporarily forgot.
Constance is freaking out right now. She's like typing vigorously into the comment section. Like, no, you've read this book. We read it together. You know who this person is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've met him as well. He's really great. Discord Con is one of those great cons where everyone is on top of each other. Mm-hmm. And obviously Terry's assistant was there as well, Rob Wilkins, who I've met quite a lot. I didn't show him my tattoo because it's quite high on my thigh, but I did show him a picture of my tattoo and he approved of it. My Discworld tattoo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you lost me at it's pretty high on my thigh. And then I'm a visual thinker, just so everyone here is clear. That is now the image that I am locked into for the rest of this interview.
Sorry. I have worn things at Discord Con that are pretty short because there's this thing that you do at Discord Con where they do bedtime stories. Mm-hmm. And I made a wizard robe as a bed outfit for that with like a pointy hat that goes over the top. That was all I hand put the sequins on because I'm an idiot. Rather than buying those strings of sequins, I sewed each sequin on individually.
That's historically accurate.
It's historically suffering, I know that much.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be pretty high up, and a couple of my other costumes are as well. So I mean, all of my tattoos are in places where, in theory, they don't get seen in cosplay, but
I see.
Like,
I thought you were just extremely provocative.
No. I just try and keep them out of the way. And the other person is Neil Gaiman. I've met very, very briefly. I went down to the filming of Good Omens because it happened to be on my day off. And I just basically jumped him as he was getting out the car and went, "Please sign my book." Mm-hmm.
So I've actually met Neil Gaiman like more than 20 times.
Wow.
Neil comes to California a lot. He got married in California. He comes to Comic-Con a lot. He comes to the Bay Area a lot. His son works at Google, so he's here because he likes to visit Mike. So I even had this project going at one point where I gave him my iPod. Does everyone remember what an iPod is? I gave him that and he drew a Sandman on the back. And then, because I didn't have anything for him to sign, because he's like literally signed everything I've ever had of his, and I have all of his stuff. So he signed that, and then I took a picture. And then the next time I saw him, I gave him that picture and I'm like, sign this. And then I took a picture. And so I'm like 6 or 7 layers deep into that like retro hole. And every now and then, like every time I show him one now, he's like, "Oh, I remember you." So that's cool.
That's really cool.
Interestingly, they premiered Stardust at Comic-Con. And if you went to the CBLDF booth and made a donation of some very small amount, like it was like $125 or so, it was not very much money if you're a Silicon Valley jerk like I am. You got to go to the premiere, and Neil was at that premiere and like hung out with people. And I've also did a Patreon Kickstarter thing. So when he and Amanda were doing the him and Amanda show, I got to go backstage and hang out with them on 2 different nights.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, so Neil is my jam. I'm starting to get into Terry also. Like, yes. Yeah. But I hadn't ever read Discworld until literally this year.
I listened.
Yeah, I was like, yes, this one, that was a good one to start with. I liked it.
It's a very good one to start with. It's one of the ones that gets recommended a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite one is Monstrous Regiment, which also is a good place to start.
That was also on the list of pick one of these 3 to start with.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also a very good one. So, I mean, all of them are very good ones, but there's a sweet spot in the middle where there's peak plots, but also peak jokes. Because when he first started, it was all jokes all the time and not as much plots. And then towards the end, once the embuggerance, the Alzheimer's started to take him, then towards the end they start to be more plot, and the jokes are in that middle spot. There's a joke, at least one joke in every sentence.
Yeah.
Sometimes two or three. In the end, they're kind of more building up and less puns, and yeah, you can start to see the difference. So there's this sweet spot in the middle, and Monstrous Regiment is one of those.
Yeah. I feel like you need to hang out with Constance.
Yes.
Like, you guys would have hot conversation for sure.
It would just be Discworld for like 12 hours. You'd just come back later and we'd still be talking probably.
Yeah, that's why I think you should have a podcast. I mean, Constance loves a podcast, like loves a podcast. And she's always wanted to have a podcast. I keep trying to think of an excuse to make a podcast with her. So someday we'll have one. Do you have a most interesting person you have met, or is that Neil? I mean, Neil's pretty interesting.
So, yeah. I mean, Bernard Pearson, who runs the Discworld Emporium, is the most interesting guy that no one knows of who isn't in the Discworld fandom, because he just has all of these stories that he just comes out with. Yeah. But he's just seen so many things over all the years and just has some really fantastic stories. So I kind of imagine that talking to Terry would be kind of similar, where he's got all of those stories amalgamated, if I'd ever had a chance to meet him. So it's not even that it's a pale version of Terry, because he's his own person, but he's a really fantastic person to hang out with.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you wish someone taught you a long time ago?
I guess the thing about that is you don't know what you need to know until you discover that you needed it.
So what do you know now that you wish you had learned? Yeah.
I wish that I'd done a better job of learning German in secondary school, because I got kicked out of German in secondary school. I wasn't allowed to take the exam. I am probably now the person out of my whole year group who speaks the best German, given that I'm at university level. And, you know, having learnt it in school would have saved me a lot of time. It's taken me 5 or 6 years to get to this point. So I will tell you, go on, sorry.
In where you live, do you speak to people in German or in English?
In German, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of Germans do speak extremely good English.
Such good English, like.
Oh yeah. And if they know that you can speak English, then they will try and speak to you in English.
Yes.
You reach a stage where your German is good enough that they stop doing that, because it becomes easier to speak to you in German than it does to speak to you in English.
Yeah.
And although people still want to practice sometimes, for example, we were at an event a little while ago and someone came up to me because he'd realized that I could speak English and was speaking to me in English. The catch is he wasn't a native German speaker.
Oh,
so he was looking for someone else. He wasn't a native English speaker either, but he was looking for someone else who wasn't a native German speaker to hang out with, which was absolutely fair enough as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. When I went to Germany, I obviously asked anyone before I just started speaking to them in English, because that is polite. And like, never was there a person who was like, no, I don't speak English. Germany, Switzerland, like that whole Austria, anywhere, everyone was like, oh yeah, I got this. Or I'd be like sitting there, I'd be talking to my friends in a booth or whatever at a restaurant about stuff, and we were trying to figure stuff out. And the person would come over and be like, just started in English. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And then they would be like, here's your English menu. And I'm like, great, because I don't know what any of this is.
Yeah. I mean, we do not live in a tourist town at all. Where we live now is not a tourist town. The last one that we lived in is a tourist town, but this one isn't. So it's very much a case of, if you're in a tourist town, then they know what to expect. They'll be hiring the English speakers as well. It'll be on the hiring list. But yeah, a lot of Northern Europe is extremely good with English. I mean, we've got Nikki, who's English second language. Her English is fantastic.
Her English is perfect.
Exactly. My wife.
She lived in the UK too.
Yes.
Yeah.
My wife is more fluent in English than I am most of the time. And to be fair, we do speak English on a day-to-day basis. So, and she's lived in the UK and she's lived in America. But her parents as well. When I first met her mum said, "Oh, I don't speak very good English," and then immediately came out in a better sentence in English than I could probably manage in German even at this stage. And it's like,
that is
yeah,
always the way. I have a Japanese friend, and she's like, "Oh, my English sucks," and then she will proceed to chatter on in English, and I'm like, I can't. I don't even speak English. I speak American and bad American, and I can't even get as good as she is because she's speaking in a very proper way, and I'm like, whoa, I hadn't heard that word in a while. Hang on, I gotta go look it up. And she's right.
yeah, you articulate yourself differently in a second language than you do in a first language.
Absolutely.
It's a lot more tricky because words don't have a one-to-one comparison.
Right.
But you might find if you looked up that word, it had a very close comparison to something that's quite common in Japanese, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And so she'd learned it as a comparison for that.
No, she used proper English. The thing I use is not proper English in any way. Like, she's doing it better than I am.
Yes. I mean, there's also that. There's all those stories. I was reading one this morning about someone who applied for a French for a Canadian citizenship and failed the French test, and he was French.
Well, okay, so Canada speaks basically ye olde French.
Yes.
In the same way that Americans actually speak ye olde English.
Yes.
Like, we speak more like you guys used to.
Yes.
And so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. If you could choose your dreams, what would you prefer to dream about?
If I could choose my dreams, I would be dreaming about friends all the time rather than all the random stress dreams that you get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like maybe some nice dreams about conventions and stuff in there without the stress. Because normally when you dream about a convention, it's a stress dream of, I've left my wig behind, or I haven't finished this costume.
Yeah.
But like just dreaming, especially at the moment, dreaming about conventions without the stress on there would be super nice.
Yeah.
And all the fun parts and not the packing and the trying to get there and the realizing you've got there without your costume stuff that normally happens.
Yeah. I had a fun dream the other day that I think would be the dream I would want.
Oh yeah.
My husband said something he never says to me.
Oh.
He said, "You were right." And I was like, "Oh, it happened."
And then you woke up and it was all
yes,
a dream.
it was actually exactly like that. But I was like, "Oh my God, this is what happened in my dream." And he was like, "Yeah, that was a dream." No, he'll give me credit. Like, literally, I sit there and, like, if I am right about something and I can, like, he's a lawyer. He's not actually a lawyer, but he's a lawyer about things. So I have to, like, prove it every time. So if I prove it, I just sit there going like, give me the 3 little words I want to hear.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what I would dream about.
That's also a good option, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I'd probably dream about, like, tasty food that did not make me chubby. Like, that would be good.
That is the dream.
Yeah. I'm like cannoli. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What skill or talent would you most like to learn?
I want to at some point get into making shoes. Sounds really random, but I've got hobbit feet. They're they're not big, they're just stupidly wide. Mm-hmm. So I don't fit. They're also stupidly short. I don't fit into men's sizes. I have to wear women's shoes.
Oh, okay.
I actually have to wear boys' shoes because, so if I could make shoes, I could have shoes that fitted me. I can make shoe covers, and I've made like suede shoes, but I've never tried to make anything with leather before. And that is something that I definitely want to get into at some point.
Like, part of me is like, it can't be that hard because we've existed for millennia with shoes. And so people have figured it out.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, it goes from that to, oh my God, that's incredibly difficult, like Vicky makes. But you don't need to be Vicky. You just need to get feet covered, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've sewn leather before, just not a lot. So I need to, it's definitely on the list of things to try at some point. It's just, getting to the point where I'm ready to do it. Not even skill wise or emotionally wise. It's just, collecting all the bits together. And
yeah. What was something that you thought would be easy until you tried it?
I guess when I very first started sewing, I had this idea that I think everyone does when they first start.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to roll in this pile of fabric and I'm going to come out with a beautiful garment.
Yeah. It's going to be like Marie Antoinette's
Yeah.
Sophia Coppola edition. Yeah.
Well, that wasn't what I was thinking of. I was more thinking of
your thoughts are different than mine, but that is what we all think.
But yeah, I think that's definitely, I guess what specifically tripped me up, and this is a very me thing, was one of the first things I tried to make was Haku from Spirited Away. And to make Japanese clothing, you need an awful lot of straight lines.
Yep.
I discovered that I cannot draw straight lines.
It's kind of
straight
critical.
lines is so difficult.
Especially in slippery fabric.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially with slippery fabric.
Yeah.
But any kind of fabric where I'm drawing a straight line, I've sort of got techniques around it these days, but I've joked before that all of my lines are as straight as I am. Because it's true, I cannot draw straight lines.
Yeah. All right, the other part of that question, what is something that you thought would be hard until you tried it?
I think for a very long time, I thought using patterns would be harder than patterning stuff myself, which sounds really strange, I realize, but I'm completely self-taught.
Okay.
So I looked at patterns as like this complete mystery, where it was just a pile of instructions where I taught myself to sew. So I knew this was the next stage that I needed to do, and this was the shape that I needed. And, you know, I was working off, basically I drafted myself a block pattern and I was using that for everything. So all of my early stuff, honestly, until very, very recently, for the first 10 years or so, were done without patterns. And the reason I started was I started to use pattern because I couldn't quite figure out how to do trousers. I played around with trousers and never quite got it right. So I took a pattern that I got from a charity shop for 50p that didn't fit me at all, and took the crotch pattern out of that and then patterned the rest of the trousers. And then again, essentially used that crotch section as a block pattern. And from there, I started to realize the patterns weren't so scary as I thought they were, and slowly started to use them and started to realize, oh, this is how I should have done that on my block pattern, or, you know, this is a better way to do sleeves. And it's funny, but sometimes looking up tutorials actually helps.
As it turns out, getting instruction is a thing.
It's funny how not trying to learn everything from scratch yourself, from, you know, the beginning of history, and
speeds things up a lot.
Other people have learned, really helps.
Yeah. This whole like we teach each other thing is like definitely the like monkey trait we all should like glom onto.
Yes. Like, if someone else has made that mistake for you, please try not to make that mistake yourself if you can find someone who's made it already for you.
Yeah. I've never made a block. I've never I would love to tell you I've never patterned anything. I patterned like my mask pattern and that's it. I think I patterned a pocket one time because I was like, I think they're roughly this shape. And then I was like, actually that shape works fine. But I don't actually know if that's the right shape for a pocket. I just was like, if I stick my hand in here, does my phone fit? Yes. Okay. So like I don't pattern at all. I've never draped anything in my life. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So I'm only patterns. So it goes both ways. Like the fear is on both ways.
I mean, I've never draped. I don't have anything to drape on except for myself. I mean, I guess that's not true actually, because I have fitted stuff to myself by wearing it and pinning them. So I have sort of very vaguely draped like the first ideas of it, but I would need to make myself a proper model before I could do any proper draping. So
I have Brunhilde here.
Yeah.
Still never done it. I just use her to take photos and to be cute and like hold on to this while I cut something awkward on her or whatever. Yes. But yeah, I find that I suffer from montage thinking, which is when I see what's going to happen in my head, it is a montage. And that when I come out the other end, it's definitely like the end of a montage. Like I am awesome. Like when I thought about the COVID lockdown, like it was like the Sofia Coppola. I was gonna roll in some fabric and I was gonna come out with like 15, 18th century dresses and a couple more bustle dresses. I was definitely gonna make a whole bunch of hats, and I was gonna be a primo corsetier by the end of this year. I think I've made 2 things. So I'm like, my montage is real slow. Like they sped that way up. What about becoming an adult caught you completely off guard?
Everything. Can you really prepare for being an adult? No. And I went to like baby adult school as well because I went to university. So I didn't even get dropped in the deep end. I mean, I'm in a very weird position now because I don't work. So I'm kind of back to that in-between stage again.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird. But
I mean, I don't work right now either. It is kind of weird.
Yeah. Like it's nice for the first year or so, but when it drags on, it starts to get a bit. I mean, luckily I've got YouTube these days to keep me busy, which keeps me out of trouble. It's everything. Like they don't teach you taxes in school, and we don't even have a harder tax thing than our tax is a lot easier than yours is, or they don't teach you about interacting with people.
Yeah.
When you become the adult, I think it's a very millennial thing to not feel like the adult still.
No, I'm a Gen Xer and I totally feel like I'm an adult. My husband doesn't either. He still plays video games all day.
It's imposter syndrome.
Yes and no, though. Like,
it's not quite.
I read this thing about Gen X, that we are the first generation of people who can spend their auxiliary spending money reliving their childhood. Like until like boomers didn't do that. They spent their auxiliary spending money on a house and raising their kids and whatever because they didn't have a ton of it. But Gen Xers got paid more. And so we had copious free money, and we started spending them on like Comic-Con and collectibles and playing video games, and like we were never forced to actually do adulting in the same way that I think they were forced to do it, like maybe boomers were kind of, but before then, like it was a survival thing. Like you had to adult or else you were gonna die, right? Because you couldn't get enough money for food or whatever. But like it's not really a problem anymore, so we kind of get to be kids forever.
I wouldn't even say that's how I don't know if that's an American side of things, because in Europe, a lot of even Gen Xers, but especially millennials and younger, we don't have spending, like no one has a house, no one owns a house in the UK.
No, it's not about that. It's that we spend the money we do have doing things differently.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
We don't have enough money to buy the things that our parents brought, so instead we spend them on the things that made us happy when we were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not an imposter syndrome thing. It's like our priority is totally different. Like we're like, we don't actually, renting is sometimes better than owning a house because then you're not responsible for all of it. So, I mean, there's something about like earning money, owning a property for sure. But like also having had a water heater blow up in my house and having to deal with like all the water damage from that, and what, like I can tell you owning a house isn't that fun.
I've dealt with that in a owned house and a rented house, and yeah.
So like, but I do feel like, we're not taught how to be adults. I mean, I am an adult for exactly however long I have to in a given situation. Like when I ran a team of people, I was like, I'm in charge. I've got this. This is what we're going to do. And then as soon as everyone nodded at me, I was like, okay, I can go back to being a kid. This is cool. What is the best advice you've ever been given? I
guess the best advice I've been given that I've never been able to take is to not care what other people think about you. It's to just roll through life. But the problem is that's one of those things where it's easier to say it than do it. And I do try to, and I think a lot of people do try to some degree. But the way that society thinks about you controls your success to some degree in a way that means that you have to think about it in certain circumstances. I can't just roll into a job interview in jeans and a t-shirt, even though that's what I wear on a day-to-day basis. I can't just roll out on the street in my pajamas either, for that matter.
You should come to Silicon Valley because you can totally do that. Both of those things.
Well, maybe I should. But especially for someone with autism, where I have to mask who I am so much of the time anyway,
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it is good advice, and it is something that in circumstances is really good advice, and something that you should, at the very least, you should try and not take the way that people take you seriously, if that makes sense. Like, you should try and hold your own regard above other people's, not to the point where you're big-headed or anything, obviously, but
Mhm.
have a sense of self-worth that's not related to how other people see you.
Yeah.
But it's still a good piece of advice to not listen to what other people think about you, because would we be rolling around in fabric and coming out with historical clothes if we cared about what people thought about us? You can't be a cosplayer or a historical costumer and be wandering around the local park or down to the castle or whatever in some ridiculous outfits
Most people think it's cool
without
though. Like, I think.
in the UK you get a lot of child shouting at you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's things like walking down to the beach to do a shoot in a wig, and some kid walks past and goes, "Oi, redhead!" Or I've been called Tinky Winky before as well when I was doing Edward Elric, so I had this spike in my hair. It's just things like that you just ignore.
Yeah, totally ignore that. I had a piece of advice that's very similar but slightly different, which is it is none of your business what other people think of you.
Yeah, that's a good
And that's
one.
kind of a better way to think of it, is like, instead of like trying to like stop yourself from doing that, it's just be like, it's not my business that what they think of me. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
not my problem and it's not my business. Yeah. It's a little
and
bit
I love
easier to
that.
act on, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. What food is underrated or underappreciated?
Ooh, I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat meat and I don't eat fish. So there's a lot of vegetarian dishes that I love that I know that a lot of people don't appreciate as much.
Like what?
So things like vegetarian lasagna
Mm-hmm.
is delicious. I have eaten meat lasagna for not for 20 years at this stage, but I have done. Vegetarian lasagna is better,
Mm.
and I will always say that. And I also want to say that English food is better than people think it is. And this might be, like
Yes.
free nostalgia, but I want fish and chips so badly. Not the fish, but I want the chips so badly.
Mhm.
And like a proper korma isn't English either, but you can't really get it over here. And I miss that. And
Oh, we go out to English food here. Like, there's a pub here. We have one that's called the Brit.
yeah,
And
obviously.
it's a sad imitation, but like, honestly, we're like, my household loves English food. Like, we eat tikka masala, we love a steak and ale. Like, there's so many things that we eat when we go to like England, we are pumped that we're going to England, because I'm like, they're gonna have a camembert in every pub, and I can have cheese, because
Yeah.
we don't have pubs at all. Like, that's not a thing. And we don't certainly serve camemberts in them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like cheddar is something that I've been really craving since I moved here, because you can only get it on the expensive cheese counters.
Mhm,
But like in the UK, there's just like a shelf full of different cheddars. And I
mhm.
miss that so much.
And like good cheddars. Like, people in America, I mean, everyone's like, "Oh, Wisconsin makes good cheddar." And I'm like, "No, go have English
A
cheddar."
proper mature cheddar
Mhm,
where it melts in the mouth.
mhm.
That's what I'm here for.
What luxury is totally worth the price?
I would say so my household are cheapskates. I am a cheapskate and I will always be a cheapskate. But I have learned over the years that there's kind of like this price point where under that everything falls apart.
Yeah.
So, and you have to find out what it is on everything.
Mhm,
But I will always buy the lowest I can get away with, where it's going to survive
mhm.
without spending too much money. So things like, I mean, for a start on fabric, if you buy cheap fabric, you can tell by looking at it, and that's something that I think a lot of early sewers make as a mistake. Is you go, okay, this is the fabric I can afford, and
Yeah.
it's very tricky to make that look as good as if you're using poly cotton where you should be using a nice wool, you can tell.
Yeah.
And that is a mistake that I have made in the past.
I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's just like when you're learning, you should use cheap
Yes.
fabric
Oh
because
yes,
like
yes.
you will mess this up anyway. So
Oh yes.
whatever. And also you may not have the money, but there is a point with fabric, like especially even just like muslin. Like you can buy cheap muslin. Sorry for you guys, it's calico. You can buy cheap that
Hmm.
to make all your like toiles with and whatever. It's trust me, it's always going to be off grain, it's going to be a mess, like it's not going to cut right, it's not going to hang right. Like even muslin has like a kind of minimum price point at which you're like, oh, this is okay muslin, I can A, make my toile out of that, and B, I can use it as my lining then, you know.
And also things like, if you're using a different material, then it's going to fit differently than if a cotton is much thinner than a wool. So
Yeah,
if you're making a mock-up out of that, you're going to notice the difference.
yeah.
I guess the luxury for me is, well, a completely different topic. The luxury for me is tea. That's where I spend the money. But the Germans here, they're very good at doing fruit teas.
Oh.
And then you can get good black teas in loose leaf, but not in tea bags.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm lazy.
Oh, I have this
So,
I have this cool kettle teapot combo in which
mhm.
it's made by Breville, and you put it, it's almost like a coffee maker. You put it water in it, it's big teapot. No, like more like a kettle. And then it has a basket at the top, and it waits till the water gets to the appropriate temperature for whatever type of tea you're making. And there's like all these boop a doop boo doop, and then it'll lower the basket in for exactly how long it needs to, and then bring it back out. And you can set it to be like done when you wake up,
That's amazing.
and it'll keep it warm.
You get those like old alarm clocks where you could set it and it would make your coffee or your tea for you in the morning. It's like one of those, but like modern day version.
Yeah, it's really cool. Although people in UK have these cool teapots that you can't get here that I want, that have like rave lights in them.
Oh yeah, those are cool.
We can't get those in America. Like I've looked everywhere, I can't find them. I'm like, I want the rave light teapot.
If you get one off Amazon and get it shipped to you.
We have a different voltage system than you do.
Ah, okay, yeah, that's true.
And it's like
Yeah.
something like that you can't just change, use the little plug that you actually need to get a power converter for. And I'm like, no, I'm out for that.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't want one that bad because I have the bougie pot that like makes this one. I need that.
Yes.
But yeah.
No, I've never had one of those either. So
I use Mirage Frere tea. Like that's my favorite tea.
Yeah.
And I get it in England.
I've been to the one in the Louvre and I've been to the one in Covent Garden.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the Covent Garden one is lovely.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's just underneath the Moomin store as well. So
yeah, I think they just moved actually.
Oh, did they? Well, I haven't been there for 2 years because coronavirus happened.
I was there, I think the fall right before Corona happened. And I think they had just moved into a new building. So I was really excited about that. But it's still in Covent Garden. If you were a potato, what way would you like to be cooked?
Chips.
Chips. Yeah. Okay.
Proper chips, I'm going to say.
Toppings?
Ketchup.
Ketchup?
Yes.
Not malt vinegar?
No. I'm not very good with toppings and stuff like that. I don't use salt on anything. I don't really use vinegar. Wow. I don't use pepper.
Okay.
It's one of the autistic things. Like I'm a hyper taster, so I'm very specific about flavors.
I am too. My friend keeps trying to tell me I'm a super taster, and I'm like, I don't think so. I just don't like bitter.
Yeah, I don't think I'm a super taster particularly. Yeah. It's just with autism, your senses tend to be hyper or hypo, and I think taste for me is one of the ones where I'm hyper. So I notice tastes a lot more, and they irritate me a lot more than they would do a neurotypical person.
So I don't like cooked tomatoes, so I don't like ketchup that much. It's okay. I do like malt vinegar, but it's a bit much and it makes my chips soggy. So I like A1 steak sauce.
I've heard about it, but never had it.
It's like kind of like Worcestershire sauce-ish, but like thicker, more like ketchup texture. Constance, not to bring up Constance again, but Constance made me a special ketchup and sent it to me for Christmas, which was amazing. And I didn't know that ketchup is not just a tomato thing.
No.
She makes like a mix from she makes a whole bunch of different kinds apparently. And she's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, you can make ketchup from like, that's why it's called tomato ketchup, because it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be tomato. And I'm like, what? Like my mind was blown.
I assume you just swap out the tomato essentially and adjust the spices and whatever in there
Yeah.
to, yeah. Yeah, I can see that working.
What animal would you choose to be?
I would be a cat. That's an obvious question.
Yeah.
Everyone would be. Like, why would you not? Like, you get to sleep in a warm place all day, and like, it's a very nice existence being a cat.
Well, a very specific cat, right? Like, because there are cats who don't have that life.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. True.
Someone in one of these said that they would be a dog of a unchildless or a childless married couple.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, yep.
That's a good answer too. Yes.
Yeah. What would you do if you knew you could not fail?
There's so many things that you would do. It would be like having a luck potion or something. You would just want to go around and do all the things that you ever wanted to do, wouldn't you?
No, like you get to pick one thing that you're not going to
Yes, I know, but you would want to.
Yeah.
If there's just one thing that I would do, I would probably pick like a really difficult costume that I've always wanted to do and do that. I assume it's not on a time limit.
No.
So yeah, I would just go through and find the most fancy. You know what I would do actually? What I've always wanted to do is recreate one of those court suits with all the embroidery by hand. So I would do that.
Wow.
Because knowing that I would put in all that time and effort and it would come out brilliantly, it would make it worth it.
I mean, I think it's going to come out brilliantly anyway.
Well, you'd hope so with all of that time and effort. But
yeah, I think you should do it anyway. I think you should pretend like I just gave you the power to not fail.
I have been thinking about it. The problem is that embroidery, like doing the embroidery on the shirt for Aziraphale, and that's just around the collar and the cuffs. That took about a month. So
yeah. This is like a life project.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I have no idea what I would do if I could not fail. I usually I go into everything assuming I can fail, like failure is an option, but that I'm not going to.
Yeah.
So
that's a way of approaching things though.
Yeah. Like
keep yourself on your toes, but don't expect it.
Yeah. All right. How superstitious are you?
I'm not particularly superstitious. I do all the old thing, like, touch wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because Sod's Law. Okay, I'm superstitious about Sod's Law. Sod's Law is clearly a thing. That's Murphy's Law in the US, I think.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Where if you say something, it's clearly going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. That is clearly a thing that happens. And like, I guess I would like to believe in karma, but if it is a thing, then I'm definitely always on the down end of it. So I don't know what I did wrong in a previous life, but something likes to kick me occasionally.
I'm like, you're a really nice guy. Like, you don't get any bad karma.
Oh, I get bad luck all the time. It's really hilarious. It just makes me laugh. Every time that I want to do something, then the bad luck comes and kicks me. It's like I had a job in a fabric store set up. My first weekend to start was the weekend we went into lockdown for Corona. Yeah.
I had just taken a year off to go traveling.
Oh, I know.
I mean, I feel like that 2020 was like the year everyone had plans.
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone is like, dude, this was my plan. And everyone's like, oh, that sucks. And it's like everybody has one of these. So I guess at least we're all in the same boat. But like, or people were very excited about 2020 for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the new decade thing. Everyone goes, it's a new decade. I should do something exciting, right?
I guess, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, 2020 happened to all of us, didn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, you having a job at a fabric store was pretty choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially since, everything I've applied for since then, I haven't got any through to anything.
So did the fabric store just like go out of business? Like why?
It was in lockdown, and then once things reopened 3 months later, they didn't have the position anymore because of how little business there'd been in the meanwhile. Also, it was specifically to help on a market which didn't start up again the whole of last year and still haven't started back up again. So it was doing stuff in store, but it was also doing that market. So
do they know that they can call you?
I don't live in the same town anymore, so
oh no. Okay.
Yes. And we're still in lockdown anyway, so.
Right. We are always in lockdown and never in lockdown here. That's the weirdest part about it, is like we keep jumping tiers, so it just like changes all the time what we are and are not allowed to do. But like really they're like, just stay home all the time. That would be the best thing. And everyone's like, okay, or no, depending on which way they're gonna do it. I mean, even when we were in full lockdown, people were just doing whatever they wanted. So I was like, you guys don't really understand. Okay, so you are not superstitious except Murphy's Law.
Yes, that's definitely a thing.
So if I were to ask you if you've ever had a supernatural event, the answer would be no.
No, but I do have a funny story about it.
Have you ever had a supernatural event or seen a ghost?
So when I was at university, I was dating these two people, and we were in one of their house, and we were telling each other's ghost stories, essentially, because that's what you do when you're teenage. Well, not quite teenagers anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so we managed to terrify ourselves. And then, so it's a London house, and what happens quite often in London houses is it was built before there was a bathroom in there. So the bathroom has been built in later, and it's essentially in the cellar.
Fun. Yep, been in those places before.
So you've got these three terrified young 20s who have just been telling themselves ghost stories. Sometimes where a place just has this chill over it.
Yep.
Cellar was one of those.
Yeah, for sure, because it's a cellar.
So we all decide it's bedtime, we need to go to the loo. And we were too scared to go by ourselves. So we went down in a huddle.
Yeah.
With two of us sitting on the stairs and the other person in the loo. And I went first. And when I went to wash my hands, apparently the pipes made this screaming noise. So I'm washing my hands and I just hear these two screams from outside. I then open the door, which then makes it worse. And then one of them falls through the door into the crawl space underneath the main house, which then makes it even worse again.
Oh my God.
So there's just the three of us basically wetting ourselves in fear, screaming at one another because we've told ourselves ghost stories.
You guys should have gone to another house.
Honestly, at this stage, I think we kind of wanted to.
Yeah. Also, like, in every place I've ever been to in London that has one of those bathrooms in the cellar, for some reason, the stairs are like terrifyingly steep also.
Yes. Very narrow, very thin.
Why? This is not safe. And it's all, you know what? It's always in a pub that I'm seeing this happen. And I'm like, I'm drunk. Like, don't present me with the only option to go to the bathroom down like murder stairs. Like, why do
those are just the standard stairs though? My parents' house is 200 years old and they've got stairs like that in the house because it takes up less space essentially.
Yep. So. Totally does. And also you might die.
Yes.
Yes. It's good population control.
Yes.
What book or movie do you wish you could experience for the first time again?
All of Terry Pratchett.
All of Terry Pratchett.
Oh yeah, I'm rereading them from the beginning at the moment. And well, I guess with Terry Pratchett, you do kind of start them again every time because there's always jokes in there that you didn't catch the first time round. Or in my case, the 10th time round. Or in some cases, I think I'm at like 15 on some of them. Like, I'm always picking out new jokes, so those you kind of can. Oh, I tell you what though, if I could experience a game fresh, it would be Breath of the Wild. I would love to start a new game of Breath of the Wild without any memory of how it works or the world, so you could go exploring again. Yeah.
Do you know that I'm like 3 years deep into a game? Yeah. I've played, I think, over 300 hours at this point, and I have to go to the desert and get the like big guy from there still and explore the desert area, but I'm running around the map with Hero's Quest on, just looking in all the places I haven't been before. Or Hero's Path or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so good. And everyone's like, wow, you haven't finished that game yet? And I'm like, I will finish this game the day that the next one comes out because I'm like milking it like as long as I can.
I think I'm on my 3rd playthrough or something. I did the original one. I did the first one, and then I went through and I was trying to get every single collectible.
Mm-hmm.
And I managed to screw that up and not get one of the photos that I needed. So I need to start again. What a shame.
At one point, okay, so when you kite off the first time,
Yeah.
you're supposed to go in a direction. Like there's a pathy general suggestion for you to go to. Okay, I didn't know that and I just went. Okay, so I immediately went somewhere that was like unbelievably bad, like just
Oh.
death zone, right? Like no. So finally I get to this town and I considered it my hometown for a while, even though it's not where my house is. It's the other town.
Yeah.
And I did not do the shrine that is there because it was really hard. And it's a shrine where they teach you how to do the evasive maneuver to get away from the ancients. And I was sitting there at work playing these things because we had work breaks where we were playing Breath of the Wild together and stuff. And I handed my Wii, or my, it's not a Wii, what is it called? My Switch over to my coworker, and I was like, yo, can you do this one for me? Because like I don't have it in me today. And he's like, sure. So he does the shrine for me. That was the only shrine you actually need to do to learn something. And I didn't do it. So I logged back in at some point because I was like, I really need to learn this maneuver. And I was gonna try to like go to that town and do the shrine because my husband had started Breath of the Wild game on my Switch also, but never really played it. So I was like, oh, I'll just log in as him and I'll play his game and I'll just go to the town and do it. I like was like, I don't have any stuff. Like I am so overpowered, right? Like 300 hours of play. Like I have all the stuff. I have every power. Like all my containers are full. Like I started over and I was like, oh God, I don't know how to function. I don't, and my map isn't open. So I don't know where the thing is. Like, I don't know where the town is. I don't know how to get there. I don't have a horse. Like, I was like, never mind. I'm just gonna shoot them with bomb arrows more, I guess.
Yeah, I've never got the hang of flurry rushes and dodging and all that either.
Yeah. I have pickup shields all the time and I'm like, I don't use them at all. Like that's not a thing I do. My MO is to sneak up and then just aggressively attack until the thing dies.
Exactly, yeah. Like, I'm so overpowered that I just wail on them until they die.
Yeah. That's one of the great things about the game is like once you get like 100 hours under your belt, you just have so much stuff and you're so overpowered that like there are a few things that can still kill you fairly easily, but for the most part you can handle any situation.
Even the centaur guys, whatever they're called, I've got the hang of those now. I just freeze them and then attack them and then freeze them and then attack them again and just keep coming around in circles.
I've only successfully killed one ever. This is going to be the weirdest thing for all the people who have never played this game.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm down. There's like a Colosseum like thing that you have to go to at one point, and there's a centaur thing in there. That's the only one I've ever managed to kill, and I managed to kill it by like getting on the second level and creeping up and just shooting it with arrows and then running away.
Yeah, I mean that's quite a good one to kill because you've got all the good weapons in there. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. But I unloaded at least 100 arrows of all kinds on that guy before he died. Like they are real hard to kill.
Once you got the knack of them, they're not too bad. It just takes a lot of weapons.
Yeah, no.
You can get on their back. You can get on their back if you time it right, and then you don't use the durability. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I don't even get that close to them because whenever I get that close to them, I'm just like, oh, Mipha's Grace is being used. And you're like, thanks. I'm gonna run away now.
Yep.
They're the only thing that I creep past like quietly.
Yeah.
What fictional world or place would you like to visit?
I would like to visit Middle-earth. That's easy.
Yeah.
As much as I've been talking, like obviously Discworld is the second one, but the problem with being stuck in Discworld is I would get mugged and possibly, killed because it's Discworld. Whereas Middle-earth, I can be vaguely confident that at least I wouldn't get mugged.
I mean, depending on where you were.
Hobbiton. I would want to go to Hobbiton, clearly.
Yeah, okay.
I'm basically a hobbit anyway. I'd fit
you
right
would,
in.
Like, blend right in, yeah.
Yeah. I would find my people and it would be fine. I wouldn't have to wear shoes ever again, and then I wouldn't have an issue.
Yeah.
But, soft, cozy feelings, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Many people have said Middle Earth to this question.
Yes, it's a good answer. That's why.
Or Narnia, and I'm like, really, Narnia? Because that place really messes with you. Like, have you read those?
Yeah. I guess if you pick the right time period, like when the kids are in charge,
Mm-hmm.
that golden era, then that's probably quite a good time to be in Narnia.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I don't know if I've ever answered this question. I actually kind of want to go to Philip Pullman's world from his Dark Materials because I want to know what it's like to have a daemon.
Yes.
I want to, I mean, my little kitty, Keanu, is kind of mine. Like,
Yes.
we have conversations. I just hold both sides of the conversation. Like,
Yeah.
do you want me to squash you and love you? And he's like, no, mama. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it anyway. He's like, okay, mama. Like, but I would love to know what that's like.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
I guess that's another thing like Narnia, like if you find the right place, it's probably okay, but
Yeah. I mean, as long as you're not trying to like overthrow their giant religious government, it's probably fine.
But they're also kind of in charge, so you kind of have to be careful.
Sure.
Know. But
I don't
yeah,
care.
like
Just visiting.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Just visiting. It's like a holiday. You don't really have to know the laws or pay attention to them because you're on.
And hopefully it would be like Will, where you could take your demon back with you as well.
That would be amazing, for sure. You can have an unlimited supply of one thing for the rest of your life, and it cannot be money. What is it? Sushi, Scotch tape. Constance said black thread. What?
Ooh, black thread is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
My instant reaction was tea. But the problem with tea is you need water and heat to be able to use it as well. So,
but that doesn't mean you don't have those things. It just means like you never run out of this thing ever.
Yeah, like a good tea, I think would be a good answer for that. Like, and then you've always got it. And you don't have to worry about going to the shops or anything, and it's there.
Yeah,
and yeah, I would be happy with that.
That's a solid answer.
Yeah.
If you could have a personal assistant, what would you have them do?
I would have them clean.
Okay.
I hate cleaning.
Okay.
And it's my job as well because my wife works and I have to, and I don't. So obviously, it wouldn't be fair if I didn't do the cleaning.
Wait, is that how that's supposed to work? Because that's not what I do.
Well, it's only fair because I'm at home all day, so I'm not going to make her do everything.
Yeah. Okay.
I hate cleaning, especially the stairs. I hate cleaning the stairs.
Oh, I hate cleaning the stairs. Why is that such a pain?
It's such a pain, especially I want to get one of those handheld hoovers at one point because that will make my life so much easier. This is the most house talk ever, but yeah, one of those handheld hoovers so I don't have to carry the big hoover down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
But and then someone else can run the gambit of cleaning my sewing room floor and finding all the pins for me.
You need one of those sticks with a magnet on it.
Oh, I do. Yep. We were talking about it literally last night because Mrs. Dolthalion came in and was like, that's a pin on the floor. And I was like, yep, that probably is.
Uh-huh.
And it was.
My answer is always like, uh-huh. This is my space.
Yep. The one room in the house with carpet as well.
Oh, yeah. We don't have any. We have one closet that has carpet in it. And I think it's really funny. And I will occasionally like go in and vacuum that out. All right. This is the last of your regular questions. And then there's another question.
Okay.
Would you rather be able to talk with all animals or speak all foreign languages?
Ooh. I mean, speaking foreign languages, assuming that's fluent, would make my life a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though I am like a relatively good level, I'm still nowhere near fluent in German. The other languages, I mean, once the world opens again, we do want to go traveling again, so that would be useful as well. But I'm a pet owner. I don't have a cat at the moment, but being able to speak to your pet would be the best thing ever. So that's a really tricky one.
I keep thinking about that, and then I keep thinking like, I don't really need that to like speak to them because I know what they're thinking based on like their little movements and like what they're doing and how hard they're flicking their tail at me and their ears and all sorts of other things. But also like I don't need to hear like treats. treats, food, treats, all because that's what they want to do. Or
Yes.
I'm outside the door. I'm outside the door. I'm outside the door. And I'm like, I know it's closed for a reason. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. So, I mean, with my last cat, he wasn't subtle either. So,
yeah, my cats are not subtle and they talk all the time. So I feel like I understand them.
yeah, it's when you've got a cat sitting on the very edge of the arm of the sofa, leaning into the space, just going,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because someone's eating a chicken wing.
Uh-huh. Mine just like stand up on their hind legs and cry at me. They're like, I want that. Give it to me now.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
here you go. All right, here is your super controversial bonus question.
Woo.
Is a hot dog a sandwich and why?
It is not.
Okay.
Do you know why? So a sandwich is something between two pieces of bread, right?
Not always.
Okay. What else would it be?
Okay. So for everyone else who has to suffer through this again, Gilbert's never seen these. The Oxford English Dictionary does say that it is two pieces of bread. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary, however, says two pieces of bread or a roll. Split roll.
Okay, so basically an American sandwich isn't a British sandwich.
There's an argument for that. Also,
Um,
like, do you consider like sub sandwiches or Philly cheesesteaks or po' boys or any of those kind of things not a
no idea
sandwich?
what a Philly cheesesteak is.
Oh, okay. I can show you a picture later. It's decided to be a sandwich.
So here's my logic, right? A hot dog bun does not count as bread.
Oh, okay.
That's not bread. That's like some soft cushion material, like sweet dough.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
If like in the UK, you do get sausage sandwiches that
Yes.
are made of proper bread.
Mm-hmm.
With it wouldn't even matter if the sausage was whole, honestly.
Yeah.
But the kind of bread that you use for a hot dog, the kind of like the dough, the buns. But I guess if the Merriam-Webster says bun, then that kind of ruins that theory. So
Also, like people who say it has to be two pieces of bread and because it's only one, like when that bun inevitably splits while you're shoving it in your face,
yes.
does it like instantly pop into the universe as a sandwich at that point?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me that it's one piece, but it's just, I wouldn't really classify that as proper bread.
Okay. That is a fair answer. I'll take it. All right. Thank you for joining me today, Gilbert. I will leave a list of his accounts down below so you can go check him out and show him some love. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below and let me know what you guys have been up to. And I will see you with another video soon. Bye, guys.